Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to For the Public Good. We're the show that identifies corporations, institutions, and individuals who are doing good and doing it well. Tonight's guest is Dr. Roger Birosel, a senior consultant at the Climate Change Commission and Secretary General of the Earth Savers Movement. The purpose of the commission is to establish the framework, strategy, and program on climate change. The Earth Savers Movement is a non-government organization whose purpose lives in its name. We'll learn more about it in this show. Roger, thank you so much for coming this evening. My friends tell me that you're the go-to guy for environmental issues here in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, can you just tell me a little bit of something, how you got started and what you're doing and where you're going?
Well, when I came back from the United States after my schooling year, I taught in Ateneo, UP, University of the Philippines in Diliman, in University of Santo Tomas, in the Philippine Women's University. And I decided that it will be a waste of time to teach small classes of students. I have to teach more people as much as possible using media in environmental work. And before I did that, I had to get engaged into lobbying, governmental lobbying. And one of the Republic Acts that I was pushing for was the Cooperative Development Authority Act and the Cooperative Code of the Philippines. And the senator who I chose as a sponsor for one of the Republic Acts was Senator Harrison Alvarez, who became the chairman of the Ecology and Environment Natural Resources Committee of the Senate. And we got to talk together for quite a while, and we became good friends. And he was expressing to me his frustration about the fact that environmental concerns were not the big thing at that time in the Philippines. And I said, Secretary, I think we will have to organize an environmental, non-governmental organization and push for the issues, and sooner or later it will catch fire. And so we decided to put together the Earth Savers Movement. He's the honorary founding chairman of the Earth Savers Movement.
I see. And how long ago was it that you formed the Earth Savers Movement?
Oh, about 1992, yeah.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
it's been a while then, okay.
Yeah, we were organized just in time for us to join the Rio Summit in Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were able to get involved from the beginning with the Climate Change Convention, the Biodiversity Convention, and the Sustainable Development Agreement, the Agenda 21.
And what areas do you work in? Is it across all environmental issues, or do you focus on one particular area, or?
No, because I have scientific training in chemistry, biology, and genetics, so I can just about touch anything that has to do with the environment. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Maybe I'll just ask you a couple of things that are interesting to me, and then maybe we can move on from there and look at some other things as well. First of all, the thing that we hear about all the time is global warming, and I think you call it global heating.
Yeah, I call it global heating.
Global heating.
And the reason why I call it global heating is that in global heating, you actually have greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide that absorb the heat energy and transfer it to the earth, to the water, to the ocean, to the plants, and to the soil. It's actually transfer of heat. And so it's not just warming. And the problem with the word warming is it's a positive word. You're a warm-hearted person, you warm up for exercise. When you feel cold, you warm up. So it has a positive connotation. And global heating is more scientifically correct, and at the same time more public relations correct.
Good. You know, as you know, you certainly would know that it's controversial not because maybe it isn't happening, but because there's a lot of it has been politicized over the years. How do you fight that politicization?
Well, we always have to stick first with the basic science, and then at the same time, when we explain it to non-scientists, which includes, unfortunately, in the entire Philippines, we have a relatively low science literacy. And so you have to express it in words that they can understand, but give very concrete examples and explain it in such a way that they can really pick it up and then come up with very few buzzwords or concepts, very basic concepts that they can hold on to and understand the whole thing when they start reading it in other newspapers or see it in movies or see it in television news and in the magazines and the internet.
And when we talk about global
Heating.
what are some of the effects that we see already here in the Philippines?
Well, okay, in the Philippines, for the past 10, 20 years, our temperature has increased by 0.6%, 0.6 degrees centigrade.
In 20 years?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
the past 20 years. And unfortunately, the International Rice Research Institute has decided that for every 1 degree increase in temperature of centigrade, we will have a corresponding 10% decrease in rice harvest.
Ah.
And so, in a sense, then by the increase of almost 1 degree centigrade in the temperature of the Philippines, we will have decreased our rice harvest by 10%.
And so, are we suffering rice shortages now? Or
Well, not just because of the temperature, it's
Right.
also because of mismanagement, because of the use of the wrong technology, the use of the wrong subsidies, the use of the country seems to find it easier to import rather than have it planted. So that's a big problem.
I see. Now, last week, following along the same area, last week I had an environmentalist on, Matthias Gelber.
Yeah.
And he talked about one area that he was working in. He talked about global heating. And I was shocked to find out that just the production of cement accounted for something like 6% of all of the carbon dioxide emissions in the world.
Not only that, the cement industry is the #1 energy user. You
Right.
actually heat up calcium carbonate to produce calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. For every ton of cement, you produce about 80% carbon dioxide emissions.
Right,
when you
that's
clean it up, yeah.
what he was saying.
Yeah.
And so he's working with some people who have come up with a different kind of cement that uses volcanic ash that doesn't take so much energy to produce and doesn't have the giving off of the carbon dioxide that one has. So that's one area where working to come up with a new technology to take care of, because we can't quit building buildings, of course.
Yeah.
But to find that, what are some other areas that we would work in?
In cement industry in particular.
Not just cement, but anything else.
Well,
I'd say is a high.
A major strategy for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, of course, is renewable energy.
Right.
And I'm working now with a friend in the cement industry to adopt municipal waste as a source of energy. It's called the refuse-derived fuel. And by doing that, you will be reducing the need for fossil fuel, and at the same time, you will be helping in solving the horrendous municipal waste problem in this country. And at the same time, you will reduce the need for landfills that environmental NGOs don't seem to like at all.
Oh, actually that's one of the topics that we talked about on the show, as well as one of the fellows that's at the Coffee Clutch. I think that's where I met you the first time. Howard Mineris, I think, is doing something along those same lines of trying to use waste to produce energy, and with no greenhouse gases or anything else as well. So you're working with that area as well? Good. And what are some other? I guess forestry is another. If you have more trees, you're going to be converting carbon dioxide to oxygen.
Not only that, but the rainforest or the forest in the watershed is actually a natural dam. They catch the rain, and instead of letting it flow down the hills as a flood, it will absorb the rain. And so I understand, and I might become one of the consultants. There is a project now being pushed by the water company owned formerly by the Lopezes, which is now owned by Manuel V. Pangilinan, for a project for reforestation of Sierra Madre.
Oh, great! And so planting trees is a good thing. I know.
Well, the problem is from a more scientific viewpoint, planting a tree doesn't necessarily mean you will reduce the emissions, because the tree, after absorbing carbon dioxide during the day to manufacture sugar using the energy of the sun, at night it has to rest and it respires carbon dioxide. So you more or less have a balance. It is just the sequestration of carbon dioxide as part of the tree that helps in the fight against greenhouse gases. The best way to sequester carbon dioxide that will last for 1,000 years is what's called biochar.
Right, biochar.
And biochar is where you burn biomass under the soil in the presence of less oxygen. It's kind of like pyrolysis. And the biochar has the structure that will, when you put it into the soil, will retain water, will prevent the erosion of soil, becomes a good hotel for microbes, and of course it will capture and retain and sequester minerals that are needed by the soil. It restores fertility to the soil. And biochar is called terra preta in Brazil, was invented by the indigenous peoples there when they were, would you believe that the Amazon really was planted by the Indians?
Oh, was it really?
Yes, they used biochar to reforest the tree, plant the trees. The same thing happened in America. It was the Indians who were planting, creating the ecosystems there. It wasn't done by nature. That's one of the discoveries now.
And we just came along and destroyed
Yeah, just
it.
came along and burned the whole place down. Yeah.
Tore it up.
And the same thing is being done now in Amazons, unfortunately, for the use of soybean plantations,
Right.
and for by land grabbing by burning the forest. And the abuses are the ones that are really destroying the earth and its natural resources.